Hello guys, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to have a look at my latest purchase, and it's a M1933 Hitler Youth utility knife. The Germans call it the 1933 Fahrtenmesser, which basically translates as travel knife or hiking knife. And it was standardized in 1933 for the Hitler Jugend. The Hitler Jugend themselves, they were formed back in the early part of the 1920s, and they used a variety of knives at the time: hunting knives, camping knives, surplus army knives, and the like. But once Hitler gained power, the Hitler Jugend gained a standardized knife, which is this one here. It's actually the very first Third Reich knife produced. Even before the SS and SA knives were standardized, the Hitler Jugend had theirs first, which is quite interesting. They were produced between 1933 and 1942, and this is a late production example. Collectors kind of go by early period, transitional period, and late period, and I'm not going to go through all the details. There's enough of it for you to look at on the internet, but basically early period 1933 to 1936 produced knives. They had a different blade which had no ricorso, and they were slightly thinner. They also had commercial markings on the blades, and also a etching on the blade which said Blut und Ehre, which means blood and honor. That was continued up until the summer of 1938, when that was removed. And this particular example here has no markings, no blood and honor etching on the blade. There's also what collectors call a transitional period between 1936 and 1940, when there was a combination of the RZM markings and commercial markings on the blades. And then from about 1940 to 42, they just had the RZM markings on the blade, which is what this particular example here has. They were part of the official uniform of the Hitler Jugend, but they were not issued to the Hitler Jugend. The Hitler Jugend or their families had to purchase these privately, and they were quite expensive for their time. They were about 4 Reichsmarks at the time, and that kind of equates to modern currency about $30 to $40, maybe about £30. So quite expensive if you come from a low-income family. So not all Hitler Jugend had one of these. But by the end of 1942, about 50 million of these had been produced, so they're quite a common knife. They're not scarce. Anyhow, I've always wanted one of these, and I thought I'll do a little video on my example here. So what I'm going to do now is take out the knife from the scabbard, and we can have a closer look at the two items. However, before I take out the knife, I'll just compare it to a K98 bayonet. So as I say, the Hitler Jugend knife is just about 10 inches in length there, and you can compare it to the bayonet, which is about approximately 17 inches in length. So it gives you a little bit of an idea about the size of these knives. Well, I've just removed the knife from the scabbard, and as you can see, it's a beautiful clip point blade to it. As I say, the blade is about 5.5 inches in length. From about 1933 to 1936, the blades were slightly thinner. And also in 1936, they added a ricorso, which is that bit of metal here. There would have been a high stress point here, and I would imagine a lot of the blades probably snapped. As I said, they were used and abused by teenage boys, so you can imagine that they would have had a lot of wear and tear and breakages. So as I say, from about 1936 onwards, they added a ricorso, and the blades were slightly thickened. The knife has black Bakelite grips, and it has the Hitler Jugend diamond inserted into the grip here. The diamond does move slightly. The reason for that is there's a split pin in the back here which holds it in place. It's not been glued in or screwed in. It's, as I say, it just has a split pin that goes through a hole in the grip panel. So this is called the hilt. That's the blade here. There's a leather buffer pad here that would have protected the would have buffered the scabbard. This bit here is called the cross guard, and then this bit here is called a quillion. You can basically see that the grip is basically a copy of a World War I K98 bayonet. It's not a bayonet obviously, but the shape of it is just like the World War I bayonets. The scabbard is black painted, it's enamel painted, which means it's the paint has been baked onto the scabbard. The scabbard is metal, it's steel. And my example has a nice leather strap here, hanger, still in pretty good condition. Sometimes the hangers were marked, but my particular example isn't marked. Some of the later versions were made out of compressed paper and things like plastic, kind of early plastics, but this is a leather one here. The hilt furniture is a non-magnetic alloy, and it's been coated with a nickel coating. As you can see, it's very nice condition. Not a lot of wear and tear to the example here. And mine is as I said, a late period knife, so it has no commercial or civilian maker marks on it, as the earlier ones would have done. It just has the RZM number there, which is M7/38. The M7 was the code for knife makers, so all the official Nazi Party daggers and knives, SS daggers, NKSS, SA, and what have you, would have had the M7 marking, and 38 is the code for Paul Seilheimer, and they were a factory in Solingen in Germany, in Western Germany, where most of these knives were made. So the knives basically lost the commercial markings around 1940 once the war started, and they started putting on these codes to hide the identities of the companies making these. So that's what I'm saying. My example is a 1940-42 production knife. The knives, they ceased making these in 1942 as the war progressed. They're pretty common knives and not that difficult to get hold of. There were about 15 million of these made in total. And what else? There's a liner in the inside. I'll do a photograph to show you a little bit easier, but you can see the white liner that holds the blade in the scabbard, stops it falling off. You can see it's white. It's actually a metal liner, and there's a cotton covered pad on the outside, which is a good indicator that you've got a genuine knife. Reproductions and fakes tend not to have the cotton on the liners, though there are genuine knives without the cotton liners, but you can just see the liner, the whiteness. It just basically stops metal to metal contact with the blade. So I guess that's it. As I say, I've been wanting one of these for a very long time. You can see the small size of it. It does fit my hand. I've got I suppose a average size adult hand, but it's a very good utility blade, and they were very popular with Americans. A lot of these were brought back after the war, and a lot of them were used by hunters in the United States in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s. I've seen accounts of these being used for gutting deer. They're apparently very good for hunters. And the knives were actually also produced after the war for the German Pfadfinders. That's the Boy Scouts, and they would have obviously had a different logo. They had a fleur-de-lis, I believe, but the knife was continued after the war. But this is a genuine wartime production knife, and I'm very happy to have it in my collection. Don't think there's anything else I can really say about it, so I'll leave it at that. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching, and bye for now.